Hi guys, so in today's video I'm going to share 3 of my favourite cross-training exercises for aerial. So what is cross-training? This is simply the exercise, the movements that we do off the apparatus to build strength, flexibility and control to support our aerial practice. My name is Verity and I'm an online aerial strength and conditioning coach, and I specialise in helping aerialists build strength and achieving the skills that they want in a sustainable way. So there is a lot that we can achieve by training aerial itself, and there are a lot of skills where in order to achieve them we have to train them on the apparatus. But there will also come a stage in your practice where if you want to really level up, if you want to get stronger, if you want to reduce the risk of injury, if you want to improve your flexibility, you do need to work on movements off the apparatus. Splits is a really great example of this. If you want to achieve a completely flat split on the floor so that when you're up on a hoop you can do some beautiful split positions, you're not going to only train splits on the hoop. You're going to work on that as its own skill on the floor, training flexibility and mobility drills to support this. And it's the same with building strength, and it's the same with building body control. So training movements off the apparatus to support your aerial are super important. And to be honest, I do recommend this from the very start if you are a newer aerialist. This is also the piece that tends to be missing from people's training when they're looking to kind of make that jump from beginner and improver to intermediate, or from intermediate to advanced. So if you feel like your training has hit a plateau and you're not really able to progress past what you're currently able to do, cross-training is likely the thing that you need to be implementing into your training. So the purpose of this video is to give you a few ideas of exercises that you can immediately try and immediately add to your training to start to get a feel of how cross-training can help you. We're going to be looking at pulling, pushing, and of course the lower body. So let's get started. So the first exercise that we're going to look at is something called the reverse row sit back. And this is an exercise that I use with the majority of my clients regardless of their level because it's pretty accessible. I'm going to be talking you through this, demoing on my gymnastics rings, but you can actually also do this on aerial equipment or even on a bar if that's what you've got access to. So in aerial, there are an awful lot of movements where we are moving from a vertical position to a horizontal position, or horizontal to vertical. And by that, I mean our spine is going from here to here, or here to here. And in fact, there are some movements where we go from vertical to horizontal and finish in an inverted vertical position. But this isn't something that gets talked about a lot, and it's also not something where I feel like there's a lot of information on how to train this, like this transition from a vertical to a horizontal position while you're either pulling or pushing with your arms. So the reverse row sit back is a drill that takes you from a horizontal to a vertical position while in a pulling position with your arms. So it's really useful for understanding how to support your body weight with your arms while it transitions from these different positions. So I'm going to show you how this works. You'll see I've set my rings quite low, and this is because we want to start in a horizontal position ready to do a row. So ideally, we want our shoulders in line with our hips. Mine are a bit lower just because of how I've chosen to set the rings. My shoulders are lower. And then I'm going to have my knees bent so that I can squeeze my glutes and engage my lower back and hamstrings. From here, I'm going to do a row. So I've pulled to the top of my row. I'm going to turn my palms towards me and I'm going to sit back. So I've just gone from a horizontal position to a vertical position with my spine. Then I'm going to lift my hips back up, the rings, and lower back down. So the reason this is quite accessible is because we keep our feet on the floor. If you adjust the rings or your equipment so that when you're in your horizontal straight arm hang, your shoulders are directly level with your hips, that will make it easier. If you set the equipment higher, that will make it easier again. So you can adjust the angle of your body to make it harder or easier. And I'm going to demo it one more time just to recap for you. So getting into position, lats are engaged, squeezing my shoulder blades together, pulling to the top of my row, palms towards me, sitting back, then lifting my hips and lowering back down. So I really like this exercise. Not only does it help you build strength, understand lat and upper back engagement for pulling movements, and help you build a bit more control with your upper body, it allows you to feel what it's like to load your upper body and then move your torso and your hips between a horizontal and a vertical position and then back again. So this is really transferable to tons of movements in the air. So the next exercise that we're going to have a look at is for pushing strength. So obviously in aerial, the majority of the movements that we're doing are pulling. And if we don't also train our muscles to push, we are going to create a lot of imbalances in our body. If you want to get really, really strong for your aerial, you want to be training in a well-rounded way, and that does mean pushing movements. What we're going to have a look at today is something that I use for warming up and preparing the body for training sessions, and it's called locomotion. So this is essentially crawling movements that are done on the floor, and you can do them in different ways to prep your body for specific skills. They're also pushing movements. So it's a really nice way to not only build strength and control without loading all of your body weight through your upper body, but it works on helping to balance out all of the pulling that we're doing in the air. So we're going to look at something called the twisting bear, and this focuses on single arm overhead pushing strength, and it also mobilizes the spine with lateral flexion. For this exercise, I want to come into an A-frame position, which is similar to a downward dog, but I'm making sure that I have a straight line from my wrist to my hip. So I'm not trying to arch my spine, I'm just trying to make it straight. And then from here, I'm going to step opposite hand and foot, and I'm going to turn towards the bent leg, and I'm going to drop my hips. So this is a really nice position to just kind of hang out in. It creates a stretch through the side of the body, and this is my lateral flexion of the spine. So really nice if you're feeling particularly stiff, or if you're warming yourself up for something like C shaping. You can see I'm in a kind of C position here. And what I want to do at this point when I'm relaxed on the floor is allow my shoulder to come up. So I'm supporting myself with this arm, but I'm not really pushing very hard at the moment. Now I'm going to push down into the ground and bring the shoulder away from my ear. And then I'm going to keep pushing, and I'm going to allow my hip to lift. And then I'm going to turn, keeping my feet where they are, and push myself back to my A-frame. So this is my single arm overhead push position, and then I'm going to step the opposite hand and foot, turn towards the bent leg, come into my stretch, my lateral flexion of the spine, relax the shoulder and the arm, and then push down, away, and then turn my hips, and then you can see here, single arm overhead push. So because we're only loading a small amount of weight into the upper body, again, this is a pretty accessible exercise, even if you haven't done a lot of single arm pushing work. And this is just a great exercise for coordination, for mobilizing your spine and your torso. And I'm a really big fan of cross training with movements that target multiple things at once. Like, especially if you're somebody who doesn't have tons of time to train, it's far more efficient and effective if you can use movements that focus on multiple things at the same time. So locomotion is just a really great way of doing that. It tends to at least include some kind of upper body push and then a bit of core work or mobility of your torso or hip mobility. So twisting bear is a fantastic one to add into your warm-up, or you could use it for conditioning. Definitely give that a try. Okay, so the last exercise that we're going to look at is for the lower body. So how many of you feel like your legs are the one part of the body that you just forget when you're in the air? If that's you, you're not alone. It's so easy to be, fully focused on the upper body because that's literally the thing that's keeping you safe, that we forget that we even need to engage the legs. So working on leg strength and power exercises are really useful for having more awareness in the air, because if you have strong muscles and you're used to training them and you're used to engaging them on the ground, it's easier to do that on a piece of aerial equipment, right? If you never train your legs other than when you're in the air, you're going to have a lot less strength and control, which is going to make it harder to maneuver them. I also feel like with cross training the lower body, things like squats and deadlifts, it's pretty obvious that we want to be training those movements. Like, they're kind of, integral to building a strong lower body. So if you're not already working on those are very easy to add in. Obviously, make sure that you understand correct technique. So today what I want to look at is lateral movement of the lower body, because there are a lot of exercises in aerial. If we think about things like beats, like bell beats, where we're moving to the side, there's a lot of times where we need to be able to control our legs this way or this way, and obviously squats and deadlifts are not moving in that plane. We're going to have a look at 2 lower body strength exercises, and I'm going to combine them together into one exercise where we're going to be traveling laterally in one direction and then laterally in another direction. So Cossack squats, one of my favorite squats. I absolutely love these. They can be tricky if you're limited in hip and ankle mobility, but this is something where you very much can just go as low as possible. And it's simply stepping out to the side and then squatting down on one leg, and the other leg is going to be out to the side like this. So this is our Cossack squat, going from side to side. So we're then going to combine this with something called a Peacock squat, which is where we step one leg behind, and the knee of the back leg, I want it to come through this gap. So I'm going to squat down, and then you can see the knee of my back leg is underneath the top leg. And I'm in this kind of like squished position, but it's actually super stable. And then I'm going to stand up. So I'm going to show you this, combining the two together. So starting with my feet side by side, I'm going to step out into my Cossack squat, stand up, and then step behind and Peacock squat. So there's a little bit of balance involved here, but I'm working on single leg strength and stability, and I'm working on squatting laterally in each direction. So there's abduction of the hip and then adduction as well. So we'll look at this on the other side, just so I'm doing both sides. So I'm gonna Cossack squat, stand up, Peacock squat, Cossack squat, and Peacock squat. So you can see that this is going to help with things like active straddle positions, middle splits, and just generally having more strength and control over the lower body. And the other thing that's nice about this combination is it's just a little bit more interesting. Like, again, we need squats and we need deadlifts, but they are very much up and down, one plane of motion. this feels a little bit more fun, a little bit more creative. And I think that's really important when it comes to cross-training our lower body. So again, I'm working on movements that not only build strength, they also build mobility, they also build balance, they also build stability and control. But by combining those two together, it's just a little bit more fun. It's a little bit more interesting. It's more for my brain to think about, and it's a bit more engaging. So definitely give the Cossack squat and Peacock squat combination a try and see how that helps your lower body. All right, guys, I hope that you enjoyed that. I hope that you found some of my insights into cross-training useful. I hope that you're able to give all of these different exercises a try and just see how they feel, see how they kind of help and can be integrated into your existing practice. And again, this is very much me sharing my ideas and my kind of research on this topic. I've been training now for 14 years, and so I've really been able to hone in on what works and what most will translate on the floor to being in the air. And that is the purpose of this video, is to just share some of my research and findings around that. If you have any questions, you can let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this and you want to see more from me, like and subscribe.